Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, Gaffa? How you doing, buddy?
Good, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Welcome back to another Footy and Coffee Conversations. You have your coffee out?
Absolutely.
What kind you drinking?
Oh, good old I think Starbucks French roast. A little bit of just a little bit of honey added to it.
A little bit of honey.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the play?
Usually I go either black or honey and a little bit of milk.
Ooh, I never done the honey in coffee. I've only done it in tea.
It's pretty tasty.
Might need to
You,
might need to give that a try.
I was gonna say you as a barista should kind of know that, right?
You know, we're using that term as loosely as possible. Me as a guy who could take out trash and refill coffee cups is more probably
Okay.
accurate than barista. I feel like that's
Well,
it's
I'll just
disrespectful to the people who actually know how to make a cup of coffee.
I'm just trying to give you a little bit more credit, you know?
Incredible.
Oh
All right, so
boy.
just to get started, introduce yourself, your name, your position, what club you're currently signed with.
What's up, guys? My name is Tony Halterman. I'm a goalkeeper, and I'm signed with Sporting Christina.
There we go. Exciting times, yeah. So you're obviously our newest goalie addition to the club. So right now with the coronavirus, back in Chicagoland, hanging out,
Yep,
chilling, waiting
that's right.
till we get cleared to start training as a team together.
Yep.
Um, to get started, if you just want to talk a little bit about your youth career, where did you grow up playing? What did club soccer look like for you? How did you decide on what college to go to?
Um, Honestly, I think as a youth career when I started out, I started playing through the Y and just local town teams. Nothing flashy like that. Just kind of through that, people that I played against that were playing on like elite club level teams and stuff like that saw me play. Um, they ended up needing goalkeepers, so they brought me into training with them one day. Coach asked me to come on and play. So through that, I was able to make it to some elite travel level teams and kind of ran the gauntlet of playing Illinois and Indiana at the same time. Was fortunate enough to like go out to Vegas for some big trips and tournaments and things like that. Didn't really ever do anything club level wise with the Chicago Magic until kind of that whole DA system started up. Kind of right at the beginning of that. That would have been like my senior year, so 2008 roughly. Kind of when I made that transition to more of that really elite level of the club system. But as far as starting out, I never actually started out as a goalkeeper. I was a field player, and we didn't have a keeper show up one day, so they just kind of asked who wanted to do it and volunteered, and kind of just took off from there. Um, some of the kids that I grew up with, one of the guys that I've been playing with since really like I was 3 or 4, his dad was the assistant coach for the high school team that I was going to
Okay.
end up going to. So in my middle school years, I was fortunate enough that I was actually able to go and start training with the varsity team as a middle schooler. So I
Oh
got
wow.
acclimated to kind of what that level was going to be like, and then got into high school as a freshman, started playing with varsity right away. So I was varsity all 4 years, helped the team get to state my freshman year, and then just had a pretty, I guess I would say a pretty accomplished high school career around here. And that led to a lot of different colleges wanting to look at me. And I settled for, well, not settled, ended up deciding on going to a small Division III school, DePaul University down in Greencastle, Indiana. That seemed like it was going to be one of the best options for me. And my freshman and sophomore year, we were in a conference called, I believe it was the SCAC. And so basically, what that entailed is schools from Texas, Colorado, Ohio, Kentucky. We were spread out all over the country. So my freshman and sophomore year, I was fortunate enough to be able to travel all over the country, kind of like those major D1 schools do to play games. And got to experience a lot of cool different places around the states because of that. Um, leading into my junior and senior year, then we actually had a change of conference because our conference at the time, the SCAC, didn't have a end of the season conference tournament. So we got snubbed my sophomore year from an NCAA bid because
Jeez.
we didn't have a conference tournament.
Oh, wow.
And for us at the time, my sophomore year in particular, the number one team in the country was Trinity, and
Mm.
Trinity was in our conference. So they won the conference outright, and they got the bid to the tournament. So we lost to them 1-0 that year, and then the number two team in the country wasn't in our conference, but they were on our schedule. We lost to them like 2-1 in overtime, I believe. So those were only two losses of the season, and I'd say the biggest shock of my sophomore year was the fact that we went like 14-2-2, I believe, and got snubbed on a bid into the NCAA tournament. It was funny, they actually had a poll across all NCAA divisions, and we were the, I think, winning vote as far as what the biggest surprise of the NCAA tournaments was, is that we
That's
didn't get that bid.
not the award you're trying to win.
Not at all.
Real quick before we go on, just in the comments, we got Yane Smed saying, if you're a sporting goalie, you need to be a good guy. I think that's true, but I also think he's biased, being that he was a former sporting goalie himself, so might have a little agenda there. Casey Ingves is the goalkeeper coach, so he's saying welcome. His son is counting
Thank
Ewa,
you, thank you.
calling it wish pods and stuff like that. So you can just feel free to ignore him because he's
Oh
like
boy.
CNN, I guess. He's like fake news. So
Fake news alerts. Oh
I
boy.
was giving him a hard time for he had AirPods in earlier today, and I asked him if they were from Wish. So now he's just taking my joke on him and spreading the love.
That's not cool.
Before we talk about more into your university years, when you're in high school, are you thinking professional soccer is a realistic option? Is that even on the radar?
I mean, I guess at the time that's every kid's dream, right? Is to go on and play, at the highest level that they can possibly reach, whether that's the college level and beyond. Um, I guess I don't know if I ever thought that it was like a possibility. I thought that I would have an opportunity to make a good collegiate career out of it. And if, something transpired from there, then it did. But my main goal when I was in high school was just to continue playing. I never wanted to stop playing. So do whatever I could possibly do to get to that next level. And then once I got to that next level, figure out what the steps were going to be after that point. But yeah, I mean, for me, I tried to do the ODP. I tried to do all the right things that I could do, as a middle schooler and in high school to help me succeed to get to that next level,
Right.
wherever that was going to take me, whatever, NAIA, junior college, NCAA, whatever level that was going to take me. I was just trying to do whatever I could do to get there. And I
Yeah.
guess I will say on top of that, I was also a multi-sport athlete, so I was running track at the same time in the off seasons to do whatever I could to stay in shape for the game. And actually ended up running track my freshman year of college as well.
Okay.
Um,
And then
so
just decided to stop to focus just on soccer.
yeah, I actually placed. I was a long jumper. That's what I ended up doing my freshman year of college. But I had run track from middle school, so from sixth grade all the way up to my freshman year of college, and placed in our conference championship for track. And then at that point, I kind of decided, well, I'm missing too much of the spring season that's going on, and needing to be around the team. So from that point on, I decided I wasn't going to be able to do it. But the biggest contributing factor that was after my sophomore soccer season ended, I was awarded the captaincy. So I needed to be around to take control of things, for that spring season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. It seems like multi-sport athletes is good, but then eventually, yeah, you gotta. At some point, you
Yeah,
usually have to end up choosing to really
yeah.
focus on something.
When you're young, I guess that's probably one of the biggest things I would say is when you're young, I think you need to do as much as you can as far as multi-sports go, because it works on so many different facets of the game. You work playing basketball, playing baseball, playing American football, doing all these different things works on a lot of different parts to just increase your overall athleticism. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that has helped me, especially in my position as a goalkeeper. It's just the athleticism that I've gained from, those different areas of sports.
100%. Yeah. So sophomore year, you guys get snubbed from the tournament.
Yep.
Talk then about your junior and senior year at university. Has professional soccer started at that point to become more of a realistic option going forward?
Yeah. So just real quick. So freshman, sophomore year, I played, but wasn't significant time. I was getting in matches, but not starting on a consistent basis. So junior year, we come in, I've been awarded the captaincy, and it's a funny story, actually. So there was another goalkeeper there at the time. He was a senior. Him and I were both awarded captaincies that year. So it's like, what do you do, right?
Yeah.
So I actually, the first 4 matches of the season, I started on the bench, which was frustrating for me as like the captain of the team. I'm not playing, we're not doing well. So I got people coming up to me, asking me why why I'm not playing, why things are going wrong. And it's like, there's just some things I can't answer for you guys right now. So it was a frustrating point in my career, and I actually, had contemplated and brought up the possibility of a transfer at that point. So plot twist in the story, that night after I brought that stuff up with my coach, I actually got a call back and became our right outside back. We played a 3-4-3 system, and I went from goal to a right back my junior year. But I started the very next match that we had, which just happened to be our first match of the conference season play, and started every single minute after that, and ended up being an all-conference defender. And the one condition for me playing on the field was that as soon as my senior year hit, I had to go back in goal. So at that point, as far as the professional outlook goes, is a lot, I really haven't gotten that many minutes in goal because I've spent an entire season playing, right back. I thought I could still make it work, but it was a real outside shot at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Enter senior year, it's all me. Junior year, I led our team to a conference title, first conference title in I can't remember how many years. Got us a bid into the NCAA tournament. And then senior year comes around, I'm in goal. I started every single match. At one point during the season, I went on like a 10-match shutout streak, which unfortunately ended because not bad. And the best part about that is it ended because one of my forwards slotted a header on me. And that's how my shutout streak ended. He went up on a long throw to clear the ball and just powered it top bins on me.
Oh, wonderful goal.
Yeah. So, but again, I led us to another conference title, was an all-conference goalkeeper, all-region goalkeeper, things like that. And fortunately for me at that time, one of my club coaches growing up and my goalkeeper trainer was the goalkeeper coach for the Columbus Crew. So since most of our conference matches now were in Ohio and in and around that area, I contacted him kind of right at the beginning of my senior year, said, hey, this is where I'm at. We play a lot of matches that are going to be out here in your area. If you ever have some time and come out to, to take a look, that would be awesome. So because of that, I had scouts from the Columbus Crew and him and coaches coming out to just about every single match that I had in Ohio.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all for the Division III level, The other side of that was I had a friend that I played with in high school, Eric Gehrig, who was at the Columbus Crew at the time. So that was kind of another in for me there with the Columbus Crew. So senior season ends, the awards, everything gets established. Just before the tournament basically came out, the NCAA tournament came out, is when I made my decision that as soon as this season's over, I'm leaving school, because I had offers already to go and join the Columbus Crew in preseason. After having watched everything in the conference play, they decided that they wanted to bring me in for preseason. There was just no feasible way to continue to go to school and, do that. And it was one of those things where, well, if I start the semester and then ended up signing, how do I lose basically all that money that I paid for
Yeah.
already for that semester? So
Yeah,
for me,
exactly.
it made more sense to just cut ties with it after, that season ended and start my career. So that's basically how the transition to the professional ranks made. Like I said, I was fortunate. I had a coach growing up that made it to that level, and he was very fond of me growing up. So that made that transition, that made that connection happen. And, from there, that's how I got my first look into the professional arena.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're probably more of a unique in that sense of having a coach from a younger age that had that experience. I think maybe
Yeah.
nowadays younger players, that's more common with coaches, but
Yeah,
all too
absolutely.
often with our age group and up, it was some random dad at first coaching, and
It,
they
you
didn't know
know,
what they were doing. And
Exactly. That was the same way for me. I mean, like I said, playing all the town stuff and the Y stuff, it was my dad or somebody else that, his dad was on the team. My dad played American football growing up and in college. So it was like he didn't really know much about the game, but he knew how to train you and get you ready for a sport. But like you said, now just the way that the modern game has changed, kids are a lot more fortunate these days having guys that have played at various levels and high collegiate levels that can come in and help make an impact directly from that young age. So yeah, I was very fortunate from that stance that I had that, growing up.
yeah, probably why most of us growing up were in teams that were not so technical but could run a lot. We had
Exactly.
the parents
That's right.
coaching were like, well, they need to run, so go do
Yeah, let's,
that.
let's just go and run, and at least you'll be able to outwork the other players.
Exactly. So what's going in the preseason with Columbus like? What's
Uh,
that experience?
I'd say the only downside of that was I had to get my wisdom teeth pulled like 2 days before that happened. So I was coming off of that a little bit. Nervous, obviously, but it was more like a nervous excitement. It's like, okay, I'm here. I've gotten into this arena. I'm getting my chance. So there's gonna be some nerves there. But I guess the way that I look at it is if you're not always nervous or a little bit nervous about it, then you don't really care about what you're doing. So some nerves are a good thing. And like I said, it helped having a friend there that I grew up playing with, I went to high school with, that was already there. So that helped make that transition a little bit easier for me. He was able to kind of walk me through some of the things that I needed to be on the lookout for, and kind of help me gel with the players a bit more. Unfortunately, they ended up going a different route. That that's how the game works. And so I left there and ended up signing with the Kitsap Pumas, who was in the PDL at the time, but they were grandfathered in as one of the clubs that was fully professional, allowed to pay players. I think
Mm-hmm.
they were one of two or three other clubs at the time playing that PDL level with, full professional contracts. So I went there and had myself a pretty good year out there. Ended up winning like player of the month at the end of my time out there, and made a lot of good connections, made some good memories. Being out in Seattle, it's a gorgeous city. We played a lot of matches up in Canada, so going to Vancouver and British Columbia, we went to Victoria. That's a beautiful city. So it was a
Amazing.
lot of unique experiences for me at that point in time. Um, I guess one thing though, real quick, that I did skip over, as far as that mentality to, okay, the professional level is going to happen. After my freshman year, I was invited to go train with Red Star Belgrade out in Serbia, to get ready for my sophomore year. So I guess once that kind of happened, then that's kind of when I thought there was a realistic possibility of making that transition. And then like I said, the way that things transpired after that, not having played much sophomore year, going to the field junior year, I thought, oh, now there's an outside shot of it. But yeah, so that's kind of how all that transition to get me to, the first professional level that I played at, or first professional contract that I signed.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a little bit of a roller coaster, but you got there. Seems to
I
be every player that has some interesting route to get there eventually.
Yeah, the twists and turns are what make for an interesting story, that's for sure. I
100%.
mean, it's all about the ride getting there.
It makes my job more interesting than, well, I trained and then I played and then I made it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to have a good story. I think that's kind of all part of what makes each player unique at that professional level is everybody's got an interesting story about how they got there and what it took. Some people, like you said, have that direct route. And it's like, oh, well, I trained, and the kid that I played with, his dad was a coach at some high, professional level, and so I got my in there. And some people, it's like, well, I bounced around country to country, slept in the back of trucks at times, and I
Yeah.
was one of the I was one of those people. There was a summer there where I was working and sleeping out of the back of a truck because I was bouncing around to all the different professional tryouts that I had, preseasons and stuff that I had gotten into.
Yeah, we had a guy on last night talking about having to bartend before he made it, and he would finish, at like 2 in the morning, and then have to be up at 6 going back to start training again. And
Yeah,
there's always some grind story involved.
I spent the summer after the Kitsap Pumas, when I moved out, to I actually came back, played Chicago Inferno for just a little bit before they dropped that program.
Shout
After
out
that,
Inferno.
yeah, right after that, so that's when I moved to the East Coast. That ASL league, the American Soccer League, was starting up out there, and somebody that I had played with in Seattle was on one of those teams. Said, "Hey, we need a keeper." So I drove out there, but I worked nights restoring floors, and I had to do that obviously when the business is closed. So I basically worked from about started between 6 to 8 p.m. till sometimes 2 in the morning. Slept in the back of a truck to wake up for training the next morning, and then did it all over again until that started up. Through that, the guy that was the general manager, I believe, had a connection to the Detroit Waza. So that's how I got my first introduction into playing professional indoor when I think it's still called the MASL, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
the
yeah.
that arena league. So I spent time, that would have been 2014, December of 2014, January 2015, that I spent time playing professional indoor soccer. And then that was an interesting turn of events for me.
Yeah,
Whole whole different ball game.
for those who don't know, indoor soccer in the U.S. is played almost essentially on like a hockey rink with artificial
Yep,
grass. So you have
that's right.
walls and boards. I think some positions, obviously, it's different, passing off of boards and all. But I think for the keeper position, now you have rebounds and things that you never had
Yeah.
in normal shooting. So,
Then that
what
is the
what was
worst part.
what was it like playing indoor soccer as a goalie?
I can tell you it is a fun atmosphere. I enjoyed the atmosphere that I was in. I mean, when I played out in Milwaukee and out in Rochester, we had anywhere from 3 to 5,000 fans, and they treat it just like an NHL game. There's music that's playing when stuff's
Uh,
happening. The fans are really intense, so it was a lot of fun. But from a goalkeeper standpoint, man, that takes a toll on your body, because like you said, there's all these rebounds. So at certain points, you're just throwing your body around just because you got to get something on the ball to keep it from going in. So there was a lot of times I saved the ball with my face. I will say that. Um, I think the biggest thing for me that I didn't like was how much they mandated playing off the boards. Because for me, it's like, well, I'm trying to play professionally outdoor. I'm not trying to make a career out of this indoor. So I need to do the right things that I'm going to do when I get to the outdoor level.
yeah,
So, playing balls directly into a target striker. I'm playing directly into his chest, into his feet. Whereas indoor, they want it off the boards coming into him or over him to come back to him. that was probably the hardest adjustment for me, is because, that's not the way that I play. It's like I have to play this directly, and there is no coming back off of anything to get to him in the outdoor game. So I, spent a couple months doing that and kind of just decided that really wasn't for me. And then I did a lot of like the soccer visa combines, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of those, I actually had a coach in Sweden. So this would have been 2016, I believe. Yeah, 2016. The goalkeeper coach for a club in Sweden saw my profile, saw my CV, and I got an invite from that to go out to Sweden. So that's how I made that transition over to Europe. I had bounced around a lot of different preseasons with the USL clubs, and it was just nothing ever worked out. I'm only 6', 6'1", and unfortunately for the American style of goalkeepers, you got to be 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, Minnesota, or not Minnesota, U.S. in general, it seems is decision making based on like NFL type stock of players' height and weight, and decide
Pretty
on
much,
that in
yeah,
the soccer world as well. I mean, I have friends
yeah,
that they're like, "Oh, you're good enough to play at this level, but you're 2 inches shorter than what we want in that position."
yeah, exactly.
So, we got a question from Matty Matt. Said best keeper coach at College of Southern Maryland. I'd say.
Hey, that was a good
Hey,
time. I did spend a 1 season out there coaching at College of Southern Maryland. I helped coach the men's and women's team out there, and during that same time, I also was an assistant coach for a varsity side called La Plata High School.
shout out La
So
Plata.
that was a good little time out there.
Yeah. So then you get to Sweden. Talk about that experience now. Talk about what's happened since then.
All right, so I get out to Sweden. Like I said, this would have been March 2016 time. Club had already started playing, obviously. They're in preseason, playing some Swedish Cup matches and things like that. For me, I was extremely fortunate because all of the players that I met there at that time that were in the club had all played, Champions League and Europa League matches. They had that type of caliber players, all guys from the Balkan area, all guys from Serbia, from Macedonia, from Croatia. So that was an incredible learning experience for me, getting to
Mm-hmm.
be around those athletes that had made it. I mean, playing Champions League, that's kind of the pinnacle of, what you can get to.
They're not
You
much
played
better than that.
you played Champions League, you've played matches for your national team, you're one of the top players in your country. Like, that's an incredible environment to be in.
But did they win a high school, conference championship? Don't.
I'd say they probably spent a lot more time playing like youth champions league and things like that. That might be just a little bit better than a high school
Have they
championship,
ever
I'd
have
say.
they ever won the Turkey Thanksgiving 3v3 tournament at their local YMCA?
I
Those
can't
are.
I can't say they've won the Got Milk 3v3s or a Lego Lamb playing in a 3v3 tournament, but
Uh,
that's
something.
pretty comparable though.
I hope they may be bragging to their friends, being like, "Hey, I played with a guy who won the Got Milk 3v3."
Hey man, I can only hope, I can only hope that that's what they're doing. So those guys were awesome, and I learned a lot from them. They just had a vast wealth of knowledge to offer, especially as a younger player coming in at that time, making that first transition to Europe. Extremely welcoming guys. Me being Croatian, that helped me gel with them more. And I played well. I had my mindset on, I bought a one-way ticket and I said, I'm going out there and this is going to happen. I had no intentions of returning because I figured if I had a plan B, then that was going to kind of take away from the plan A of making it.
Yeah.
So, I went out there, did really well in training, played in a couple friendlies with them. And after the first friendly that I played, they had made an offer. And by the time that I had played in the second friendly, I put pen to paper, and that was kind of the end of it. And started my, career playing in Sweden.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you had older players you were talking about as a mentor, but I think just in general with goalies when they go to a new club, it's it's a different situation than a field player. When you come in
Absolutely.
as a field player, you have maybe 19 other guys on the squad that can share information and kind of what you're doing on the field. When you're a goalie, you're
Right.
training just with the other goalies, with the goalie coach. So there's
Hmm.
benefits to that, but there's also kind of maybe less options of people to get to work with in that sense. So you
Right.
better get
Right.
along. You better
Yeah,
get
you kind of
along
have
with
to,
those ones, right?
you got to gel immediately, I guess that is the one nice thing about keepers. I mean, it is a family, regardless of where you come from, where you're going. It is very welcoming, because you're in that environment where I'm spending an hour with you, just you, three plus a coach or, whatever the numbers may be, but day in and day out. And there's only one of us that's going to get to play. So you have to keep it competitive, but it has to be a family environment at the same time. You got to be willing to do whatever it's going to take to not only make you better, but to help everybody else there progress. And at times you're sacrificing your repetitions so that the guy that's playing or the guy that's the starter can get in his work and do what he needs to do. So, I mean, a lot of times that means, you as a number two, number three keeper are spending hours on your own, honing in your skills because you're just not getting as many reps as you need, when you're in there in the trainings with the first team and things like that.
Right. You always see that whoever's the starting goalkeeper, like when they're taking some shooting drill, he gets what he
Yeah,
wants in, and then he's like, "All right, you can take these."
exactly. I mean, as funny as it is, that's really how it works. As the starting keeper, you kind of get to make that call. If 10 balls is all you need to get yourself ready and you're feeling really good, that's all you need. If you need to take the whole 20-minute shooting drill just to feel good, that's what it is. And the rest of the guys are just sitting there waiting for your okay.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's such a unique thing, and I think too, as you kind of mentioned, like you're all competing for one spot. Any other
right.
field player, essentially, there's at least probably two positions they could play in on the field. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like this one guy is taking my job and that's the reason why I'm not playing. Whereas like
Yeah,
a goalie, it's
exactly.
like this is the position I will be
This
playing.
is
You
it.
are there. So I think it's just
Right.
very, very unique in general. And then though
Yeah.
the fact that then you have to train so close together all the
Yeah,
time with
exactly.
that person that has your job
Yeah.
is a unique
And
scenario.
there's no doubt about it. There are frustrating moments with that. I think that just comes with the territory. Being a competitor, obviously you want to play. So, little side of you, there are moments where it's like, yes, that guy missed that ball. You obviously keep those in your head to yourself. But everybody has those moments. As a guy that's coming, one of the first three off the bench, he has those moments hoping for, somebody in the starting 11 to make those little mistakes so that they can show that they're not going to make them.
Right.
That's just natural, like I said, being a competitor. But at the end of the day, is you do what you got to do. Whether you're the starter, you're the number two or three, you do what has to be done, and you do it for that, like I said, that family environment that you're in there with the other goalkeepers.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Everyone's got an important role to make a successful organization.
Yeah.
So you have your first year in Sweden. Kind of talk through the process at that point. What are you thinking? What's next for you?
So obviously, first year going out there, didn't really expect to play much. New club. It's a place where I have to go and improve myself day in and day out in training. And I get time and I get matches here and there. But obviously, it takes time. There's a guy that's been there that is the starter. There's somebody that I'm trying to beat out that's established themselves. So I had expected that coming in. I guess I would say, fortunately for me, at that time we had a second team. Now, the unfortunate thing about us having a second team is the fact that there was already a keeper for the second team, but they needed field players. So I always started at center back for the second team. But I will say I banged in 5 goals for the second team my first year that I was out there.
Hey.
Um, you know, it, I was just doing whatever I had to do to stay in shape. I know it's not being in goal and getting repetitions in goal, but the things that I learned as a center back and as a defender, going back to when I first started, then to my junior year in college, Um, all of those things that you pick up being out on the field give you a whole different sense of awareness while you're in the goal, because you can start to read things from that point of view of those players that are in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a defender, I know what I want to do in certain situations. So as a goalkeeper, I can translate that better to the defender as to what I want them to do so that we're both on the same page. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that has helped me out is the ability to read the game from multiple positions. You know, because I will say that, you know, around here, I don't really have, in Chicago area, I don't have other friends that are goalkeepers. You know, Zach Lubin is a real close friend of mine, but he's only in town, you know, certain times when he's in the off season visiting,
Mm-hmm.
you know, his girlfriend. So when he's in town, him and I do, you know, goalkeeper training together. Outside of that, you know, one of my best friends is he's like a center back and a six. You know, ever since I got out of college, I've only played and trained as a field player.
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, I got this sense of feel for my feet. Um, and so, you know, just going through that, I took that into Sweden, started playing for the second team. I figured, well, hey, if I'm not going to get many minutes as a goalkeeper for the first team, they can take me with the first team, you know, if we're down on numbers and throw me a field player kit and say, okay, here's your keeper jersey, here's your field player, bring both of them out there because you never know what's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
You know, so it was just continuing to do whatever it was going to take to land somewhere in a starting position. You know, I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it. And I'd say through that, the connections that I had made, that led me to an offer to go play in Portugal. So I left just before the season had ended in Sweden. I mean, we ended up winning promotion that year. Michael Kozelik was on the team that year. He came out kind of midsummer, and so that's how I made acquaintances with him. And I left shortly before the promotion playoff started, and I made the move to Portugal.
Yeah, so a little bit different between Sweden and Portugal. A little bit
Yeah,
different style of play as well.
completely
Um,
different style of play and a completely different kind of environment too.
yeah. So what's the experience then in Portugal for you?
Um, so from a football standpoint of things, I mean the game there is just so much more technical. Um, but again, you know, I thought that lended itself to me because I like being very involved as a goalkeeper with the ball. You know, there's times where I get really upset at the fact that nobody has passed me the ball or played me the ball in situations when they should have, you know. Um, so to be in that environment where they wanted to incorporate the keeper as much as possible, um, that that helped me. That helped me kind of blossom more as a goalkeeper and made me feel that yeah, I can, you know, I can do this with my feet because that's the way that the game has transitioned. You know, as a goalkeeper, you have to be able to use your feet, and if you
Mm-hmm.
can't use your feet, then sorry, you know, we don't want you. We're not looking for that the
Yeah.
'70s and '80s style goalkeeper anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
you know, and obviously in Sweden, it's a totally different kind of game. It's a very physically demanding, beat you up kind of old school game. I'd say I was fortunate, like I had mentioned with all the guys that I had played with, that they were trying to keep it as technical as possible. So the transition from the club that I was in Sweden to where I ended up going in Portugal wasn't as drastic. I would say that just the biggest difference was the youth side of the teams. You know, I didn't have guys that were at the end of their careers. I had guys that were at the beginning and middles of their careers. So just the energy level of everything was, you know, instead of being at that 8, we were at a 10
Yeah.
every day in training. Um, the only downside I'd say that I had in Portugal is the fact that I had a lot of issues with my ITC. Just having come from Sweden to Portugal, that held up a lot of things for me. And come the winter transfer window, I ended up leaving because I had an offer to go play in Sweden. So that was the only downside about the going to Portugal. But as far as the team that I was with, the coach that I was with, I mean, that was incredible. You know, We had set records for the most goals scored in a season across any level
Oh wow.
of Portuguese play, automatic promotion, did all of those big things. And that was a true family all around.
Yeah.
Everybody bought into what we wanted to do, and just that atmosphere, it was incredible.
Yeah. No, it's Portugal's definitely a very desirable place to play some
Yeah.
footy at. So you go back to Sweden. Now you have a year of experience in Sweden. You kind of understand the game, the style of play in Sweden.
Yep.
What are your thoughts then going forward in Sweden? What are you trying to push for?
So after having I'd say pretty successful first year, from my standpoint, the club had won promotion. I thought I had showed well in the matches that I did play. I was going back and it was going to be my team. That was the mindset that I was in was, okay, the guy that's there, I know he wants to phase out and basically transition to a number two, and start to focus on his role to transition to even become a coach. So I knew where that guy was at, and I knew where I was at. So as soon as the offer came in, I mean, I went to work. I was doing everything that I could in the gym and, training with whoever was available to get myself ready to do whatever it took when I got to Sweden to make sure that I was at number one. And, obviously the mindset going into any season at any club is promotion. We want to finish top of the table. We want to get that promotion, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So how does that year go for you then, personally?
Um, I'd say I played about half of the matches. The issue that I had at the time was my European passport had not been sent to me, so I was still traveling on a U.S. visa. So at that point in time, I was only able to get a half season in. The first year that I was out there between Sweden and Portugal, I was able to get full seasons in. Obviously, with the exception of the winter transfer window. That second year in Sweden, I only got a half season in because of visa issues, but it was a good half season for me. I did well enough to kind of draw attention from some other clubs. And once the seasons ended there in Sweden, I had an offer to come back to the same club that I was at in Sweden, just, based off of those 3 months that I was there, did enough that they were interested.
Yeah. Obviously, there's benefits to being offered a contract from a club you've already been at. It's a lot easier for transition than going in and having to find out a whole new club and
Yeah.
how it operates and board and everything. Were you at that point at all thinking of trying to go somewhere else, or were you pretty set and committed on going back to them?
So in between that second year and me deciding to accept the offer to go back for that third year, obviously, I'm looking to try and make connections wherever I can. Uh, no country has been ruled out. Um, there was a point in time where I went down to South America and trialed in Bolivia.
Oh wow.
I was down with Club Bolivar in Bolivia, who's in the top flight of the Bolivian Football League, and I went down there. I was down there for a month. Things kind of fell apart for them at the end of the season, so nothing transpired for me from there. But going into that potential third year in Sweden, I actually had an offer to go play in the Tasmanian Premier League. So I kind of weighed the options of those two. New opportunity, new country, totally new environment versus some place that I've already established myself in. And, I know the guys that are returning. I know the possibilities that are there. And then financially, what was going to make the most sense for me, as far as what was being offered. Um, so I turned down the offer in Tasmania and, took that offer for that third year to go back to Sweden. And at that point in time, had my European passport already been approved. So that visa issue was never a question anymore. So I knew as soon as that happened, going back to Europe with a European passport playing in Europe was going to open a lot more doors for me. So I took that offer to go back for my third year. Got back there for my third year, and I was in a situation where the coach had already had a keeper there that was his, that he wanted, and it was tough to break into, to that role. Even though I had already established myself there, this goalkeeper was from the coach's hometown, and it's like, they have that relationship there. How do I get myself into that starting position? It was unfortunate the way that it worked out, but I had to kind of sit there as the number two for basically half of the season. The guy ended up getting hurt, and that's what led me to, get my opportunity, and I hit the ground running. I came in and we won 6 or 7 in a row. I took us out of the relegation place that we were in, brought us all the way up to mid-table, and I want to say we finished the season like 6th place that year. Just because of that string of matches that I had put us on. So that season finishes up, and at that point, I had the highlights that I needed, I had the CV that I needed, I had the passport that I needed. It's how do I take that and put myself into another country, or put myself into a higher level here in Sweden, having kind of already established myself there in Scandinavia.
Right.
So that was how that third year all transpired.
Yeah. We had a question from Reed. He wanted to know your thoughts on Malenko.
I'm going to be politically correct and just kind of go with a no comment there. Malenko he's a good guy, but plays favorites, and
Yeah.
it's tough to break into a situation like that, and that's kind of the way that I'm
unless you're then one of his favorites, right? As a player, then that's a good coach to have.
Exactly. But yeah, I would say
Was
that
there any discussion with him on after you got starting, and obviously the team kind of switches its form? Is he at all like, maybe should have done this earlier, or is he just kind of?
Yeah, there was that. Well, I should say that from a sport board standpoint, there was that. Yeah, he should have been our guy from the beginning. But obviously the coach at the end of the day makes the decisions. The board doesn't have the power to really say who's going to play, who's not going to play. But yeah, there was a lot of that. Yeah, you probably should have been playing from the beginning. This could have been a whole different scenario for us.
Yeah, no, it's
So
not specifically to that situation since I wasn't there, but just in general, it's difficult because there's sometimes it's not working out. A coach continues to trust a player, and finally that player, like everything comes together, they have success. Sometimes it's the
right.
opposite, and the guy that was on the bench you should have had in, and the team has success when you switch it. And it's like every time I have a saying I call it 50-50-90. It's a 50-50 shot of which one is the right choice, and 90% of the time you choose the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I view it. A good old 50-50-90 situation.
I like that.
So then, all right, so you finished that year in Sweden. What's the next move? How does that all come to pass?
So finished that time up in Sweden, and with how well that went for me, that run of matches at the end of the season, I thought for sure there had to be interest from other clubs. We're in Division 2 at the time, so it's the the 4th tier of Swedish football, and I'm sending out to everybody at the Division 1 level, so at the 3rd tier that I know that needs a keeper or that has seen me play or that I've played against, and just doing whatever it takes. I have a passport, I've established myself, just get in on trial somewhere. And kind of all of those doors, had closed on me. I was working to see if I could get back into Portugal. I had friends that were playing at other clubs in Portugal. I was, contacting them to see what situations were like there. Had actually met with another club in Portugal, and had a pending offer from them. And then at the time that that offer came in, I had a pending offer to return to my same club that I was at in Sweden for a fourth season. So again, it was one of those things where I weighed the options. Financially, at this point, what's going to make the most sense for me? Established myself already here in Sweden. I know how much I can make. I know what they're willing to do for me. And again, I know players that are coming back. I know what I can do for this club, or go into a new situation, new environment in Portugal where, I've heard mixed reviews on how things are going to operate there. The club had been established for a while, but, talking with my former coach, talking with players that were there, players that are interested in going there, it kind of just didn't make sense for me. So I made that transition again back to Sweden, and here we are now for a full season where it's me. I'm the number one there going into, my fourth season there in Sweden. So yeah, that's how that transpired. In between, I was not able to get looks anywhere. In Scandinavia, it's hard, man. I mean, you played there, you know how it works. Coaches are not always inclined to respond to messages, to emails, to, calls from other coaches and things like that. And that is a very hard game to break into. Unlike other countries where you can shoot out emails and say, hey, I'm interested in, I'm in town for this amount of time. Can I come and trial with you? And they're pretty quick to respond and say, yeah, sure. Come out for a day, come out for a week, things like that. It's a very tough game there in Scandinavia from that standpoint.
Yeah, the emails and phone numbers on a lot of the team websites seem to not actually be accurate with how few
Yeah.
responses you get.
Yeah.
So you have success there, and then what's the next play after that? How do we get to where we are today?
So I finished out the first half of the season there in Sweden. Actually had an offer for the Division 1 level. So I went and trained with them. Nothing transpired. Finished out the season there for my fourth year in Sweden. Again, all these years that I was there, good old Kaz was there with me. So, him and I have quite a good relationship, and, talk all the time, things like that. He's not too far away from me. So, he had left to head out to Finland the beginning of that fourth year that I was there. And, obviously him and I talk every day. So he was keeping me in tabs on what's going on out there. Finished out my season in Sweden. Again, got the highlights that I was looking for. Thought that I had, the performances that I needed out there to, if not get an offer somewhere at a higher level in Sweden, make myself presentable, to Kaz so that he can put in a good word for me to head out to Finland.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about setting yourself up for the next step, right? Seems to
Exactly.
be it.
It's as funny as it is. I mean, football, it's a business, but it's all about who you know at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you know that's played there? Who do you know that has the contacts to get you where you need to go?
Yeah, we got Reed on. He said, "Who is your favorite player, person from the Barrington area in Illinois?" And I guess he's assuming he doesn't want to be named himself. So,
Oh, you know what? Honestly,
yeah,
I'm probably going to have to go with his wife, Kayla, just because I'm going to consider her in that Barrington area. I mean, she's obviously more talented than Reed is, so.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. He comes on here, he comments, and people just roast him. I feel bad for him. You
You
know.
know what? He knows it's all true though, so it's okay.
Real quick before we finish, looking back on your entire career, you've obviously had a lot of different experiences. Um, what advice would you give yourself to 15-year-old you?
15-year-old me.
Also, before you answer, shout out Kayla. You said yes, number one dog. So representing.
That's what's up. What up, Kayla? I would say to 15-year-old, me, the biggest things that kind of I took away going forward was one, you know, I should have spent more time in the weight room and that physical training side of things. Because as a goalkeeper, then uh, honestly, you're hesitant at times coming off your line and things like that if you don't have that size. So I got to a point in my career when I hit the university level where I had put on the muscle that I was looking for, the size, and it was like, this is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt me coming out for a ball.
Mm-hmm.
So the training side of things, hitting the weight room, spending a lot more attention to detail and things in there is one. And I would also say knowing what I know now and how the game has transpired is using your feet more. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't spend that much time training as a field player, when I was in high school and at that 15-year age. Had I been at the point where I am now with my feet then, who knows where I would be at with things now. I think those are probably two of the biggest things is as a goalkeeper, you can never do enough work with your feet. And the gym, how important the gym is. And knowing that now, I mean, I spend every day in the gym working on different things like that because the benefits that has, I mean, just far surpass anything else that, you could be doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, we got a question. In one word, describe Malenko.
In one word, describe Malenko. Uh, Character.
Okay, that's a good word. We have.
Not,
Oh, well, you keep
yeah.
going, keep going.
No, I was gonna say character, not in the sense of like, um,
Like silly,
character in the sense of silly. Yeah.
a goofy guy. Your goalkeeper coach wants you to aim for 100 kilos. So,
Good Lord. Listen, man, I've never even come close to touching 95, so I think 100's a little stretch for me.
he's trying to I'm trying to convince him to push for 100. You
Oh,
know.
so he needs somebody else to join him on
Yeah,
that.
because he's a big gym rat, so
Okay.
he
Well,
needs someone on that adventure.
listen, I can throw up 100 kilos and plenty of different weights. I just don't want my body to be at 100 kilos right now.
We want the all around 100.
I'll try my best, but I mean, I don't know if you're going to be happy with what 100 kilos looks like as a keeper.
Moving, diving for balls in slow motion.
Basically, that's what it's going to look like. Why is he always moving in slow motion? I don't get it.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you telling your story. It's an interesting one. It's unique and how it kind of bounced around in different things. How I feel like most goalies by the time they hit 14 never see the field again, and yet you have experiences that are that and kind of unique,
Yeah,
possibly even disappointing in the moment, but now has turned out to benefit you as a goalkeeper
yeah,
and improving
absolutely.
your foot and awareness on the mental side of understanding a striker's positioning and all.
Yeah,
So I appreciate
absolutely.
you being on, man.
All right, Kev, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Stay safe, and hopefully this coronavirus we can get it figured out and get you over here starting training.
God, man, I hope so. This needs to get sorted real quick.
All right, man. Take care. Talk to you
All right,
later.
buddy. We'll see you, man.
All right, bye.